Good, how are you?
Good.
Getting busy with the conference coming up?
Yeah, we're really good right now.
Yeah. Maybe I'll advertise it first thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, if you wanted to say something.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. Yeah, we got a few of our industry partners coming.
Yeah.
CIBC and TD.
Wow. Wow. That's cool. That's good.
Yeah.
I got the promo for the documentary as well.
Okay.
So
The History Channel?
producers are going to be there as well.
Oh, okay.
We're going to show the video.
Was this the History Channel thing?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start. Before we start, just a few announcements. Number one, I still have to mark all the assignment 2 part 1, so I haven't started that at all. No worries, Sean, you're good. And another thought that came to me, email me if you wish to present your presentation next week instead of your scheduled week. We could, my worry is, do we have enough time to present all the groups for the last 2 weeks? So it would help me if maybe a couple of groups volunteered to present next week. Maybe we could do a trade, your assignment 2 could be due during your, week 13, week 14 while your presentation, I don't know, whatever. Email me if you're interested or, yeah. And the final announcement is there's a upcoming conference here at Georgian, and it's free, right? And Chris here is gonna tell you more about it if you wish to join. Just to introduce Chris. Chris is actually the coordinator at Georgian College for the Big Data Analytics program diploma here.
Albert, to learn some things too. So obviously, everybody's involved in a computer studies program here. So Big Data Analytics is a graduate certificate program, and we at every at the end of every second semester, the second semester students produce a conference which attracts, potential employers of, in this case, big data analytics professionals. And of course, we want to attract you folks as well. You're in the second semester of computer programmer, right?
I think we're
computer programmer, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And is it the final semester? Yeah. Okay. So it's a good opportunity for you guys to do some networking. One of the hardest things for any of us to do is to find a job. If you don't know how to find a job, the easiest way is to meet people, right? And meet people in a setting that's very common. So the conference is exactly set up for that purpose, right? It's typically geared towards big data analytics students, but the agenda is to sort of engage other students who potentially could be candidates for job opportunities as well. So the conference, can I go to, let's see here. If you look up Georgian College Big Data Insights Conference. So this is the event page. It runs from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It'll actually be 3 p.m. where we've shortened. The other thing as well, is that if you're confident enough in some of your skills and you think you want to show something in the event as part of a workshop, you don't have to be the best, in other words, but it's kind of cool. And one of the things that I often encourage my students to think of is that the people who write books and do presentations are not always the expert, but they're certainly perceived as an expert. So if you have a presentation that you think that would be really valuable and could provide something to the workshops, you're certainly welcome to email me, and we'll tie you in with the communications officer for the event and set you up for a 5 or 10 minute talk, right? Seeing as you're already doing a final project here, it's not a bad idea to hone in on that skill and do the same thing, right? Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
A question.
Yeah, for sure.
When is it?
It's next. And the weird thing, this is weird. Oh, that's April. Wow, that's weird. Okay, that's the old one. That's weird. It's actually Friday. It's Friday the 3rd. There it is. That's the old one. We have to tell them to take that one down. So it's 8:30 to 3 p.m. And all you have to do is register. And that should bring us to the Eventbrite page. It's a good thing you asked me. So here's the Eventbrite, and you just register and sign up. And if you want to bring some friends, just sign them up as well.
And it's free.
And it's free. Yeah, you get breakfast and lunch included.
Oh, food. I didn't know that.
Yeah, breakfast and lunch.
Food's always
included.
good.
It's always kind of a nice day.
All right.
Thanks, Albert.
Yeah, no problem. All right. So today we're going to continue off with Angular. So we're going to do 2 apps today. The first is a quick app to figure out how does Angular fit in the mean stack, right? So last week we just did Angular by itself, but we kind of don't know how exactly it fits to the whole, Mongo Express and Node thing yet until today. And second, after that, we're going to try to slowly transform our games app using the Angular framework. So if you weren't here last week, I encourage you to run this command, npm install global @angular/CLI. So that will allow you to get the command line interface for Angular. Actually, if you look at Blackboard under announcements from last week, there's a couple of, where would it go? No, hold on. Maybe it was under weekly learning. Weekly learning. No, it has to be under announcements. Oh, there it is. So pre-class to do from last week is install Angular globally, install TypeScript globally. So go ahead and install these 2 things for today. So npm I global TypeScript, npm I global Angular/CLI. Okay, so let's All right, so create a new folder, call it lesson 11 on whatever directory you normally have your other lessons. So let's do that first. Colon cd users, cd me, cd node. Okay, I'm going to make a directory called lesson 11, for me 11c, you lesson 11. Okay, so I created a directory. Let's go into that directory, lesson 11c. And then I say, we're going to create two folders. So one folder is going to be called front end, but we're going to generate it using our Angular command line. And we're also going to create an Express app inside a folder called backend. So these are the two commands I want you to type. ng new front end, which will create a folder with all the Angular stuff in that folder. And following that, you type in the normal Express that you already know. Title it backend, so it creates another folder called backend. Okay, so let me do that now. Let me open up my Visual Studio. So I'm going to go to my. Okay, so I'm in my lesson C. So the command I'm going to say is this ng new front end. So ng new front end. So again, that will create a new folder or directory called front end, and it's going to put all the Angular framework in there that you need, including the node modules folder. Yeah, so let me show the command again. So ng new front end. So that might take a while. Oh yeah. Lesson 11. Yeah, so basically, let's see if I can. There we go. So I basically created a new folder called the lesson 11. I went into that folder, cd lesson 11, and opened that folder up in my Visual Studio Code. And then the two commands that we're going to, right now I'm working on this command, ng new front end. And it's still going. So it takes a while. Yeah. All right, so I'm done. Yeah. Yeah, sure. Yeah. No. If you already did last week, you don't have to run that again. Yeah. It's global. Yeah, that was to install it globally. All right, so now that the first command is done for me, which is I'm going to type in this command here, express -e. Already know. Let's get backend. Okay, great. That was fast. Yeah. So now, as you can see, I have two. Let me see. I have two folders, one called front end and one called backend. By the way, I'm going to, if you want to, there's a really neat function here in Visual Studio Code. There's this split terminal button right here. So I'm going to actually have two terminals going at once, which I find beneficial for today's lesson. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to cd into my front, and on the right-hand side, I'm going to cd into my back. Yeah, still loading, eh? Okay, no problem. Just let me show you what to do once it's done. So we're going to, just like how in Express, when you npm install the whole Express app, and you node-mon it, and it gives you the default website. We're going to do the same thing for Angular. So I'm going to show you what it looks like for the Angular front-end part. So here on the left-hand side, which is the Angular, I'm going to say is ngserve-o, which last week. The -o, it'll open up a new browser tab, and it'll show you your new website. You'll notice it's building. It's going through all the TypeScript, converting it to JavaScript. And it's coming up. There it is. So that is what the new Angular website looks like by default when you run ngserve. I don't want to get too ahead of you if you're still installing. So show of hands if you need more time. Yeah, okay, so that's the majority of you. All right. Yeah. 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 I should have done the announcements during. Yeah. Yeah. What shall I entertain you with? Oh yeah, the announcements. So while I'm waiting here, under the announcements, I posted a couple of useful job opening links. So I actually subscribed to these two URLs in Twitter. Let me just show you those real quick. So this one here, Twitter/front-end dev job. It tweets every day jobs usually that open up around America or around the world. Some of them are remote based. So for example, here, UK remote, for example. Well, you have to be in the UK for that. Sometimes there's some like totally remote jobs that are really neat. Another tweet or a link that I gave you is this one called twitter.com/Laravel jobs. Let's take a look at that. And same thing, look at that. The latest one is so-and-so is hiring a developer in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. It gives a link to what they're looking for. Actually, I'm curious, what are they looking for? So you need to know HTML, CSS, PHP, OOP, and JavaScript. And yeah, stuff you already know. Very cool. And then the third thing I mentioned is, try Googling these words, Angular, React, Vue, switched, and get a feel of what's developers are thinking about Angular, React, and Vue. Because in my Twitter feed, I see a lot of disgruntledness for certain frameworks over others. So take a read, see what you think. Yeah, it's good. Okay, show of hands, who needs more time? 2? Okay. I think we can move on though. Don't worry, we have the slides too. The command before ng new front end was just to simply go into your folder lesson 11, so that by the end of it you have so I'm in my lesson 11 folder. If I do a directory, I have 2 folders, one back end, one front end. ng command will produce this. The express command obviously will produce that. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so let's CD into the front end, and we're going to work with just the Angular stuff for now. Now, last week I talked about generating components, and these components are basically inserted into your page. So let's try this. In our app component.html, we're going to type in the following here. Okay, so let's go into our app.component.html just to in case you're lost in terms of the directory structure of Angular. If you go into the source folder, so front end, source, app, you will see component app.component.html. That up. Okay, so this is the web page that produces This is directly coming from. Okay, so let us just get rid of it all. So just delete all of that HTML. And let's type in H1. Yeah. Okay.
No, it's not. This is
Oh, mine's. Yeah. And then, so we're going to say an H1 tag. We're going to say hello, and we're going to pass in the title. So the title, again, where does that come from? It comes from here, app.components.ts. So for every HTML file, it comes with its own TS TypeScript file. So if you look into that just for a second, you'll see here, this is where the variable comes from, title equals whatever. And then underneath that, we're going to insert a new thing. But we don't know what it is yet because we haven't generated it. So let us do that now. So I'm going to click on this plus sign in Visual Studio Code, which will give me a new terminal. I still want to keep ngserve going on here. And eventually this will be NodeMon. So I will click on the plus sign. And there we go. So let's go into front end again. Okay, so this is the command that I want you to type. So this command right here, ng, G is short for generate, C is short for component, and then the name will be messages. ng, you could say the full word generate, you could say the full word component, but these are the shortcuts. So ng, G, C, messages. So I'm going to type that in right now. ng, generate, component, messages. Now, as soon as you do that, and as soon as it's done, you will see on the left-hand side, right under app, there's a new folder called messages. That is your new component, right? So if you remember from last week, all of these files, it has its own CSS, HTML, and basically TypeScript or JavaScript. So let's take a look, just a quick peek inside the messages.components.ts for a second. So inside messages.component.cs, you'll see a couple of different things. But the one I want to highlight is this one right here, selector. So selector indicates what is the name of your custom tag that should go into the HTML file. So for example, here, if you scroll down a little bit and click on index.html, you will see a custom tag, right, called app-root. Where is that coming from? That's not an HTML5 tag. That's coming directly from, let's see here. I believe it's coming from here. Right here, app.component.ts, selector app-root, meaning to say that whatever HTML is found in this line of template, that's what it's going to insert into index.html. So same thing here. Where's my messages? So messages.component.ts, we need to say this custom tag into the HTML page. So let's do that now. So inside app.component.html, we'll type in that same and we also want to ensure one thing. Now this should already have happened, because when you type the command ng generate component messages, what it also does, it goes into this file, app.module.ts, and it inserts a couple things. It inserted this line, import messages component, so it did that automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about typing that. And it inserted the messages component inside the declaration. So again, you don't have to worry about that. So we're just ensuring that it has those two things. Otherwise, you'd have to physically type that. Okay. So now we're going to try to get some data going through. So inside your, let's close up these ones here for a second. Let's inside your messages.component.ts. We're going to create an array and stick in there some objects, some data to pass around. Okay. So inside the export, let's type this. Messages equals an array. And inside the array, we're going to have some JSON data or JavaScript objects. We're going to have two of them. Here. Okay, so inside the first one, I'm going to say some kind of field called text. We'll just say world. I have another field called owner. Well, my initials. I have another one, text, whatever. Owner. All right, so I just put an array with two objects that we're going to temporarily pass just to make it sure it's working. Okay, so now that this JavaScript part is done, we're going to edit the HTML side of the same component. So inside messages.component.html, you currently see this message works. Actually, I'm curious to see, does that display in our, yes, it does. See, hello app messages work. So it's right there. That's where it's coming from. Let us replace this, or actually, we'll just keep that for now. Let's add something to test whether we can get our messages. So let's add a div tag. And then inside our div tag, we're going to say this, ng4. Again, as a reminder from last week, ng4 is kind of like EJS's version of the for loop that we did. So we're going to, inside the quotes, we're going to say this, let message of messages. So question, where does this variable messages come from? Answer, it came from its corresponding TS file right there. Question, what is this? Message. So this is an array. Messages is an array, so each of this message will be just one element in that array as it loops. And so inside here, we can access message dot whatever field we have. So let's try to access some of the fields. Again, these double brackets, sometimes called handlebars or mustached, that's what's used in Angular to access the variable. So let's save that. And then go to your web page to see if it works. And you should see working. Show of hands, who got that? No? Okay, no problem. Let me back up. All right, so in messages.components.ts, all we did was insert an array called messages. You got that, Henry? In messages.component.ts, we just have an array called messages. Yeah. You've got that one? Yeah. Okay. And then in messages.component.html, all I did was insert this. You got that too? Okay. Is it currently being served? So in my earlier bash shell, it's still serving. I still have an ng serve going. Do you have an ng serve going? Okay. All right. Should I wait or move on? What do you think? Yeah, I can move on. Okay. All right. Good. All right. All right. Cool. How about you guys? You guys got it so far? Okay. Okay. So far we're passing data within Angular itself. But what I really want to happen is I want that data not to live in the Angular front end side, but I want that data to live in the back end Express side. So let's try this. So let's go into our Visual Studio Code. Go into your back end directory. And that's why I have this split up, so I can have access to both front and back. So I'm right now on the right-hand side, I'm inside my backend, which is the Express app, right? ls, there's the Express app. Now I have yet to install it, so I'm going to say npm install. So I said npm I to install the Express app. There, it's done. Let's just test it real quick. Let's say nodemon. There it's starting. So if I went and opened up a new tab called localhost 3000, I should see the typical Express app there. Great. I'm just going to break Control-C out of that nodemon for now. Okay, so hold on. All right, so I'm just going to collapse the front end folder for now in Visual Studio Code, and I'll open up the back one. So inside our Express app now, I want to get to the index.js file found in the routes folder. So let's open up the routes folder. And let's open up the index.js file. And this is looking pretty familiar. So what I want to do is, in addition to the root here, I want to add a get messages so that it'll spit out our message array in JSON format. Okay. So let's do a couple things. First of all, I want to move my array of messages data from the front to the back. So let's go back to the messages.component.ts for a second. I'm going to copy this structure. I've copied the messages array. And I'm going to paste it here in the back index.js. I'm going to say const paste. There it is. So I basically transferred the data from the front into the back. Let me just change the data too. So I'll say bye y'all, and change the data a little bit. For the test that we're getting the right data.
You just copy and paste?
Yeah, I just copied and pasted this messages array into our backend index.js file. I changed the text a little bit, but you don't have to. No, this is in the index.js for under routes, the folder routes, and the index.js. I just put it above the first router.get. I just put it there. Yeah. Okay, so we have this data on the server side, the node side. I want to spit that out in JSON format if the user goes to /messages. How do we do that? Let me put this down here. Router.get messages, request and response. You tell me what goes in this line here. We've done this command before long ago. You may not remember. Res.json. Inside that, what do we pass? What goes in here? It goes our variable messages. Okay. So Express, well, we can test that. Let's run nodemon. Let's go into /messages and see if we indeed get our array in JSON format. So let me run nodemon on this side, on the right side. Starting. Let me go into my browser. And in my browser, localhost 3000, I still have my Express app. But if I go to localhost 3000 /messages, do I get? Yes, I get data. Okay, so I want you to be here at least. So show of hands, who at least got this? Or is, okay. Slow down then. Okay. So let me reiterate what I just did. Here's the big idea. The big idea is our Express app will no longer be in charge of any front end stuff. All our Express app will do is spit out JSON, and that's it when we request it. And then it's the job of Angular, which is totally front, is to create the web page based on the JSON. Sort of like that earlier lab in week 2 where we had to fetch some airport codes or whatever, right? You got JSON data, you did, and then you created a web page. So that's what we're doing. We are trying to eventually turn our Express server side just to spit JSON, and that's it. It's not going to do anything else except spit JSON. And on the client side, all you're doing is making the web page. So show of hands who's already lost. Oh no, show of hands who needs more time. Nothing. Okay, just trying to gauge real quickly. Okay, maybe should I just move on then? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's just. Okay. So here's where the magic comes in. How do you connect that JSON data from the back and communicate with the front? So we are going to do this. Let me Control C out of this one first. So I'm going to Control C out of the Angular one. The first thing I want to do is we're going to generate something called a service. So think of a service in Angular as fetch. Yeah, question. Yeah, that was that part of the bonus marks or something? Like independent learn. Oh, right. So yeah, exactly what we're doing here. So if you, for that part, just say res.json your data and you're good to go for that URL. You got the mark, right? Okay. So in Angular, because Angular is such a monolithic framework, it has ways to do even the basics of things. So in the past, when we, for example, used fetch command to fetch JSON data, you don't want to use that in Angular, unfortunately. You have to use the Angular way. So here's the Angular way to do the same thing. So we're going to say, so again, I'm in the front end directory. That's where Angular lives. I'm going to say ng generate service, and I'm going to call it web. So you can, that last part, you can call it whatever you want. I called mine web. ng generate service web. Right? So we did that. So what did it do after that command? If you examine the front end structure, you will notice a couple of new files. One called web.service.ts. And the other one is the testing version of that. So let's just take a peek at that. Close these other ones. So here, eventually, we're going to fetch our data in this file. Okay, we're going to do some GET requests here eventually. Now, this is how we're going to do this. So we're going to say at the top line, after the first import, we're going to import something else. By the way, FYI, as I was preparing for today's class, I was going through so much material because everything that's out there is obsolete. Because when I tried to follow Rich's videos and other videos on YouTube, it was all already obsolete. We're on Angular 6. Angular 6 came out May, and everything out there is Angular 2, pretty much. So if I had to go through so many trials and errors to figure out how to work, because apparently in the videos that you'll see on YouTube or even Rich's videos, he uses not this HTTP client, he uses HTTP. But I read that is now going to be deprecated, and so you should not be using that. So I tried this one, but then trying that gave me some new problems. So I'm teaching you what I figured out. All right. So we're going to import that from Angular common HTTP. So the inside, think of this HTTP client as your fetch. This is what's going to be responsible that allows you to get and post stuff. Okay? Kind of like the router.get, router.post. That's what HTTP client will be. Okay, let's use this. So inside here, inside the constructor brackets, we're going to say this: private. We're going to name a variable, and its type is what we just imported. So again, just as a reminder, TypeScript. This is TypeScript right here. Colon. Now we're going to get our messages. So let's create a function or a method called getMessages. This line is a result of many trial and error on my part. Finally got it to work using this. So we're going to return this .http client.get, and inside get will be call to our express server /messages, because that will spit the JSON. And then here's the kicker, which I have to investigate. I had to make this work, I had to say .to promise. Everything else out there, you're going to see some other version that doesn't work in Angular 6 for some reason. Okay. So what this line will do, it will return the JSON from the Express server side. Okay. Now, we're not done yet. We have to put this, notice this name. So the name of this class is web service. So we have to let another module know about that. So if you scroll here, you'll find this file called app.module.ts. Open that up. So as a reminder from last week, app.module.ts, when you look at it, it's kind of like your app.js in Express. It's like the meeting hub or the meeting place of all the components, all the modules. They have to be declared here. And this file can get huge, especially the declarations and the imports. So inside, let's make some space here. And let's, on the line 3, let's put import. And we are going to let Angular know about our new web service. So again, the name of this web service, the name of this web service came directly from here, export class web service in our web.service.ts file. Import web service from so where's our web service living? It's living right here. So we want to say, look here. So to say that, just say /web.service. And as a reminder, just like in Express, you don't have to say the extension of .js. Similarly, in Angular, you don't have to say the extension here as well. Okay. As well, just below that, we are going to import the same HTTP, actually a different one, HTTP client module. So just below that, you're going to say import HTTP client module from @Angular common HTTP. Okay. As a rule of thumb, anything that you import also has to be made known down below. So let's start with the first one. So we imported the web service. We have to put that in this array called providers. So if you scroll down, you'll see inside the ng module decorator, you will see something called providers. And that's where you will type in web service. So we're letting Angular know, hey, we have a web service. Similarly, we have to do the same kind of thing with HTTP client module. However, you put that somewhere else. You put that in this declarations. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry, my bad. You put that in the imports. Imports. Module. Almost done, 3 more steps. So in messages, let's close that up. In our messages.component.ts. So again, this component was our custom component called app-messages. So this component isn't, we want this component to actually grab the data. Okay, and now that we have the web service declared, we can actually use that web service. So again, as a reminder, under web service.ts, we have this new function called get messages, which in essence will give us the JSON we want. So let's use that inside messages.component.ts. So to use that, you first have to import web service. You'll notice there's just a lot of setup and importing. That's the way it goes. Right. Then we're going to use the get messages function. So let us, this original, so remember this, we had this messages array. Let's just make that messages type has a type of object. That's it. So there's no data. Okay, so now that we imported the web service, let's use that. So inside the constructor, the brackets, we're going to say this, private web service, the type of web service. That's what we do. And then finally, to actually use the method we created, we're going to enter some code here in the ng on init. Now, so we want to use the get messages that's found in here in the web service. So we're going to call this, but I want you to note that we called it with a .to promise. So it's going to be a promise, which means we can use async await on that. So this function is going to, I'm going to say, I'm going to prepend the word async in front of that. And then I'm going to declare a variable equals await. Now we're going to call our get messages function. So we have to say this dot web service dot get messages. So we're calling the get messages here, which will give us the JSON data, and store it into a variable called response. And then we're going to say this dot messages, which is coming from here, equals response. Let's see if this works. There's still one more step, but I'm curious to see if we get an error or not. So let's see our web page. Oh wait, I have to start my server. ng serve. Okay, it's serving. Let's check it out. Hopefully it does something. Okay, well, we didn't get the data. If I go to our console log, our dev tools, to figure out why, you should see something like this. It says failed to load because of this error. No access control allow origin header is present. that is dealing with cores. And I believe one of you has a presentation on cores. Was it you? Yeah, okay. So I won't say too much about it, but so what we have to do, actually, before I let you know what the answer is, who knows what the answer is? Or at least what the concept, what's the big idea? What do we have to do? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Right. So the problem is, and you'll find this error a lot in JavaScript, is that by default, if you're JavaScript or JSON data can't pass between two different domain names unless that originating server allows it. Okay, so we're going to allow it by going to our Express server, and inside our app.js file, we're going to say an app.use and give it permissions to allow so that this error will never happen. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. In your backend of app.js, you're going to add this app.use, all of this, and put it right above your router.get slash messages or router.get stuff. So let me just copy that whole thing. Oh, you mean the slide? Oh, the file. It's on the Express side, app.js. So let me go into back and then open up app.js. So here's our app.js that we know earlier. And we're going to insert it right here. So above our app.use slash to index router, we're going to paste all of that. So notice what we're doing. We are declaring that everything from now on, you're going to allow the JSON data to be spewed out. And this is the way you do it. Okay. Hopefully, Vinayak, you could explain more of what these parameters means by the time your presentation comes, because I don't know. And finally, you have to make sure that you say next here, because it is middleware, so it doesn't get stuck. Now, if you save that, and now if we run it, hopefully it will run successfully without any errors. So let's try it again. Let's go into our front end, refresh. Haha, and no errors. Let me just make sure there's no errors. Clear, Control L to clear, refresh. There we go. So here's the magic. We just got JSON from the server into our Angular front end through the magic of services in Angular, web service. Show of hands, who got it? I have a feeling I'm losing everybody. Lower. Okay. Let me just see what's happening here. Yeah. Oh, like where did I get to where I pasted it? Got it. So inside my app.js, so that's on the back, I put it right above my app.use slash. No question. You gave you an error? Okay. I think normally I'd come around, but I think this is just a simple example for now, because what I eventually want to do is we're going to do this exact same thing when we're transforming our games app, and we're going to use this exact method. So maybe by then, if you're still getting there, then I will come around. But this is just an introduction to what we're about to do. So this is just a very small app, and then we're going to move on and get rid of this, and then move on to the game stuff. And anyone else getting errors, or maybe I should go around? Well, what's the error you get, Thomas? You got it? Dash? Awesome. uncaught errors in promise. Yes. The placement of where you added that code. Okay. In your there's too many things to debug. Okay, so as I said before, I will take a look at that once we actually get to our games, try to transform our games into this style, and then I'll check it out. But this is just a quick intro. Okay, so yeah, the app.js. So here's the app.js. Yeah. Show of hands who got it now since that. Okay, a couple. Oh, awesome. Okay. Okay, so if you remember from last week, there was a certain command that you had to do to actually. I don't want to give away the answer. To actually process all the files and put it in the dist or distribution folder in Angular, so it's ready to be. So it gives you basically all the HTML, CSS, and JS files that you can just upload somewhere. What is the name of that command? Or do you remember? ng build. Okay, so ng build was the command that you use in Angular that will eventually give you just HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. So basically, your first semester HTML course here, right? So let's try this. I want the final destination of dist to be not in dist, but I want it to go into our Bax Express public folder. Because remember, our public folder here, this folder right here in the Express side, remember, this originally had all the different static files like images, style sheets, JavaScript. I'm going to delete all that. So I'm going to delete images, JavaScript, style sheet, because that's all going to be replaced anyway by Angular by the time it moves in there. So I'm going to delete all three of those. So when I say ng build, I want everything not to go in the dist folder where it normally would go, but rather in the public folder. How do I do that? This is how you do it. So in the front end side, you will scroll down and see one file there called angular.json. By the way, usually when you're dealing with structures and files of this many, it becomes counterproductive to try to scroll and try to find, because that's just a waste of time. So for me, I like to do this. In VS Code, I just say Control P. Control P gives you this text box, and you type in the name of your file. There it is, Angular.json, and it opens it up. So if you look down in your Angular.json file, look for something called output path. Here's output path. It's currently set to this dist folder. I want to delete that, and I wanted to tell it, no, I want you to compile everything into the public folder. So that means I have to go up one directory, go down one directory until the back, and put everything in the public. That will tell ng build where to compile all the files. All right, so let's try it. Let's Control C out of the Angular one. And let's try this command, ng build. So before I press enter, let's just keep an eye on that public folder for a second. So here's the Express side, and here's the public that's currently empty, right? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna press enter, enter. So now it's going through all the TypeScript files, it's compiling it into one or several JavaScript files, as going through all the CSS, compiling that into one CSS kind of thing, and then compiling everything and giving you just one index.html file and putting it into public. Done. So if we examine the public folder now, let's take a look at it. You will see everything that Angular has compiled. So this index.html, that is your entry point. So let's try it. Let's run this. So notice I have no ngserve running. I only have nodemon running. Let's just try it out. So if we go to localhost 3000/index.html, it works, right? And this is what you can now upload to Heroku or Azure, because all we're dealing now is an Express app. We're no longer dealing with the Angular framework because that part is done. All that compile stuff is in the public folder. The command, here is ng build. But before I did that, I had to make sure this was changed. Okay, yeah. So ng build basically compiles all your TypeScript files, converts into JavaScript files, and puts it here, main.js. I'm actually curious. I've never actually seen what's inside main.js before, so let's see what's in there. Wow. Where is just a wow. So notice how every once in a while you see all the HTML that's being that can be inserted. Yeah. All right. And by the way, if we still go to localhost 3000/messages, it still gives us the JSON. So you have the best of both worlds, all running under Express, all running in nodemon. So this is the quick and dirty way of how the mean stack works. Any questions? Okay. For the next, I've put in here an exercise here, and this will challenge you to recreate the same thing except for our games app. So for the next 15 or so minutes, and then you can take a break after that, I want you to do this. So go into your web.service.ts file and change the URL to access our /games. Okay. So let's go into that file of web.service.ts. Yes, that one. So change this. So right now it's going to /messages. Change that to /games. And then in your messages.component.html file, we're going to access all the fields of our game. So we're going to say message.title, because that's the game title, message.publisher, message.year, and image URL. Okay, so it's one long thing here. Just basically accessing all four of the fields that you know. Okay. And then in order to make this work, I want you to go back to your lab 5 or any lab or assignment that you've done in the past where it's working, and you're going to nodemon that. But for the /games route, instead of res.render, change it to res.json. See if it works. That is your challenge for the next 15 minutes. And break after that, so I'll give you 35 minutes, I guess, to work on this and break. So you could, break now and then work on it later or whatever you want, just for the next 30 minutes. Okay.
Getting a different error from a couple minutes.
Okay. Let me just So actually right now, there's this exercise that I'm asking everyone to try. So basically I'm asking everyone to turn their lab 5 so that their /games route no longer res.render any web page, but rather just res.json, all the games JSON, all the games data, and then let Angular feed off of that and just spit it out, just like we did here. And then take a break after that, or a mixture of the two. No, it's just for fun and learning. Actually, everything from last week, everything from today, and everything from next week, I'm not testing you or assigning you anything. So it's really just for learning.
I'm gonna go work on my assignment.
I'll come around.
These are the errors.
Let me get my show. Yeah, let's compare. So let's compare. Let's compare which one. Okay, so let's start with. You tell me which file do you want to see first. App.component.ts. Yeah. Let's just. Yes.
Here is HTTP client web services.
So if it's grayed out for yours, does that mean
It's not used.
Oh, it's not being used.
So we have to, imports right here.
Yes. Yeah, that's probably it.
We've got a couple.
Yeah.
Back to that part where we had this. Before this, now I've got the origin.
Oh, okay. So
I added that, but maybe I mistyped it.
Okay.
Yeah, I was supposed to.
And I'll show them.
Sure.
When you know it.
Не понимаю, что связано, я не понимаю, как это происходит.
Я просто слишком много всего.
End result я вижу, что...
Слишком много промежуточных этапов.
Yeah, exactly. Don't get it.
Oh, it's actually called.
Yeah, it's a bit different.
You're talking about using the JSON?
What else?
Yeah, so you just change it from res.render rendered same kind of that. I would be. Control.
So it's just.
Yeah, you're doing. Just altering that one control. You're just literally changing.
Well, you actually have to.
So now the challenge is try to do the same thing with your actual games data.
Yeah.
So. Let me know if you want me to look here.
Will you be able to put like this temporary code, like a small temporary code up on GitHub to hold that?
This is what we just did today?
So far, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Because it's the simplified version, so that way I can
Yeah, true.
go back at it later.
True. Yeah. Okay. All right, Sean, it's up. So you got front and back. Did anyone get it yet? The exercise?
I just broke it.
Yeah. Tony, check it out.
Pretty much just went back one of those instead of render.
Yeah.
Res.json.
Yes. That's it.
It's broken.
Mine just died. Do you want me to take a look? Or, yes? Not all of it.
Oh,
So, yeah.
that's unfortunate.
That's my information.
If our wife died,
Yeah.
you're trying to give it a user.
Yeah. Res.json bracket means post bracket. Yeah, that's just like how you did it Tuesday.
I don't think you want that.
Well, I'm string.
Yeah, you don't want that. You just want the online.
Yeah.
Right.
So now to test that, what's your slash again? Just JSON.
You don't want the comment there either, right?
Afterward.
So I'm calling it a pizza. I'm doing it. You should be able to just run that all the case. You're only passing the object.
You're just passing that.
Yeah, those huge things, you're trying to put two different. I tried to put that with ID. Another way when you like pass the ID up into the post. I hit enter on there, and it came up with like extended like 20%. It's like what the heck?
So we already want to test it, like with your slash keys. See if it spits out JSON. So run here
On that file.
Yeah. You just run those on that.
Yeah. So that's pretty much one of the extra parts of the assignment.
Yeah, although.
Well, that's what I mean, but it's like one of the, you choose, that's what I mean by extra. No, it wasn't. So for this assignment, you just want that as like an extra link, if you print that off again. Okay. What I like to hear.
Oh, okay.
Henry, did you get the JSON data?
He used it possibly a broken.
Yeah. Maybe I use one.
Okay, try that. You got the right idea. Just use it with your assignment 2 stuff. Just copy your assignment 2 stuff.
Oh, and I'm not gonna break my code. Sorry.
For the image upload, if I save for the assignments, I'm saving them into the public images, I'll be able to access that. Heroku that?
I don't know. That's a good question. Unless either one of them has a pencil. I would say yes. Yeah, because in app.js, there's that one you have static files. Yeah.
And when you go express, start off. I think it was, right? Like that's the folder that directory are in. When I was doing it, I tried like slash public, slash images, and wouldn't go anywhere. Like I just slash it, slash images. Couldn't find it.
Okay. Yes.
So, yeah, okay.
Yes.
And that shouldn't change when it goes to the.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But FYI, the reason why sometimes it works locally, but it doesn't work when you post it, that's why Docker was invented, which I know about, but I know nothing about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Docker was invented to prevent against all of that pain. If you haven't already taken a break, you can take a break. I didn't want to do that. Okay, we're want to do that?
Like did this one, did this one.
Like take like a lot of 5 or take another lesson. Something that you know works. So when you write code one, it works. Find folders that you didn't go past that actually works. Just test it. Just think code one, make sure it works, then edit that. I'm hearing some success over there. You getting it?
Yeah, we threw it into our assignment.
Okay.
When you're using it in that.
Is it just a warning? Like it still works?
It still works, still works.
Okay. It's probably kind of similar to what we experienced with Mongoose, where there's something, they're always changing something, and probably something will be deprecated soon, and we have to use a new way of doing it. So yeah, that works.
That works perfectly fine. What does that do?
My guess, based on the error, I think the error message was something about parsing, right? So I guess the old way from 5.1.6 and below used an old way of parsing, but they're trying to transition into the new way, but they don't want to break your application. So they just call it a warning and say, oh, by the way, try this new optional parameter next time. And then in the future versions, like 5.3, 5. They'll finally cut off the old way and they'll finally break on you. So it's just a nice transition to get you to do what they want. I'll move on. Show of hands, who got it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 or 5. Okay, 5. Okay, awesome. Okay, so this is how I did it. So as you can see, I have the data here. So the answer is basically this. So in your Express app for your get games, you basically want to say res.json games, right? Because before it was res.render all of that. Because we're spitting out just JSON, you're just res.json games. And so by doing that, I went to localhost 3000/games, you get all the games data in JSON format. And that's what Angular will feed off of using its own version of fetch or web service. All right, let's see here. Now, continue using whatever Lab 5 or whatever previous lesson that you've worked with that gives you this data, okay? So for me personally, all I did was I copied my Lab 5. So I went into my node, I went to my Lab 5 here, and I copied all of this Express app, and I replaced it with my backend. So I went back to my lesson 11 folder, and I erased everything that was in my backend, erased it, and replaced it with what I just copied. So that way I have my games data to work with. That's what I did. Okay. All right, so this is a little review. Let's install a framework. So Bulma is the framework used last time. Let's see if we remember how to use that properly. So let's get into sign here. Okay, so to install Bulma, let's say npm install Bulma. Just as a reminder, if you weren't here, there's this hot new framework called Bulma that everyone is raving about. There it is. So to use it, we're going to say npm install Bulma, which I just did. It's still installing. Okay. And I figured out, by the way, last week I couldn't figure out why it didn't show in my node modules folder. And I figured out why. It's because I'm assuming node module is too big, and I have to click on this refresh. Refresh, and then it'll appear. So front end. So I said install Bulma. That means Bulma should be here. And there it is, Bulma. So I want to go to this path of node module /Bulma/css/Bulma.min.css. Who remembers how to incorporate this into the Angular way of style sheets? Which file name am I looking for? Who remembers? Yeah, I installed Bulma in the front end. So the answer was this file here, angular.json. So angular.json, if you open that up and scroll down toward the styles, there it is. And notice it's in the form of an array, so we can add more style sheets here. So I'm just going to add another element in that array. I'm just going to say quote comma, and then inside that will be the path to my new CSS framework. So the proper way is node modules /Bulma/css/Bulma.min.css. Okay, that is done. Let's see if it just changes the look of whatever I had. Change it. I've done nothing with it, so never mind. I guess not. Oh wait, am I actually running it? All right. So what we're going to do is let's add a nav bar to the very top of this web page, and for all web page we will have a nav bar. To do that, we have to generate a component, and we'll call it nav bar. So let's go into our second terminal here, bash, and make sure you're in the front folder and say this, ng generate component, and we'll call it whatever you want. I'll call it navbar. You can call yours nav, whatever you want. Enter. So again, whenever you generate components, it automatically does some plumbing for you So in the source app, you see a new component here called navbar right below our original messages. Okay. And also it configured the app.module TS to, well, so you should see navbar there as well. There it is, navbar component and navbar component.
Sure.
Yes. Yes, the command was ng for generate, C for component, and then navbar. Yeah. So let's see here. Where do I want to include this navbar? Let us include it. Let me see. Let me just close this off for a second. Close the back end here, front end. Okay, so we have the navbar, and what is the custom tag name? It is app-navbar. So I want to put my own custom tag called app-navbar somewhere. Where should I put it? I think I should put it right here for app.component. So if you open up your app.component.html, we have this stuff. Let's get rid of this stuff. We don't need that anymore. Rid of that, and oops, and put in our app navbar. We'll see. Let's see if it works. Navbar works. Beautiful. So that means that we can replace the HTML with an actual navbar markup that we get from Bulma's website. So I have done the hard work for you. And if you check the Blackboard week 11, you'll see the first thing you see here is a navbar.component markup. So copy all of that and replace it with whatever placeholder was in the previous one. So under navbar.component.html, that's where we saw the navbar works, right? So we're going to replace that with what you just copied from Blackboard, which I got from Bulma. Except I just customized it better. So let's see if that works. Oh, almost got it working. How come it looks like that? I don't think I did something right there. That's not what I wanted. Let me look at the vSource for a second. I think I did something wrong. Uproot. Body. Uproot. App navbar. Nav. And everything. So why does it look like that? It's not what I expected. Let me just check my angular.json for a second. Is my styles in the right path? Node modules, Bulma, CSS, Bulma.css. Yes. And then HTML, I have that, and that is coming from here. It's weird. Let me quickly compare to another thing I have. File, new window. Give me a second here. Bear with me while I double check another file that is working when I practiced it. All right, 11b, front end, open that. Source, under my app, under my navbar. Yes, and then where did I put that? Right there. That's so weird. Can I? It's right there. It's everything I wished for. What happens if I break it and then try again? We'll see out of that and reserve. Oh, so I'll close up one and wait till it opens a new one. It did work. The only thing I could think of is if the path was wrong. Ah, okay, so that was weird. Maybe it was a caching error on Chrome's part. But anyways, you should see something like this. So here's your typical home page, your games, your admin, your register login. Great. Now, actually, I expected some icons here. There was some icons that we could use. So I'm just going to quickly grab those icons. This link. So there's a link here, Font Awesome 5. I'm just going to go to that page and grab their icons. There's their link. So I'm going to grab that link, copy that link, and put it into our index.html page. So if we go back to our index.html page, there it is, and I'll just paste it below the favicon. Now I should have icons. Let's try it out. There it is. Great. Register login. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to create roots. Now, one thing to keep in mind about roots is the roots in Angular looks and smells and walks the same way as the roots in Express, but there's one fundamental difference. Anyone care to guess what that difference is? How it operates. The fundamental difference is in Express, when you go to /games, you're actually doing an HTTP GET request, right? There's some kind of communication happening between server and client. But in Angular, when you go to /games, the way we're going to do it, when you click on, for example, this link, /games, the way we're going to configure it is, it's just pure client side. There's no actual GET request in terms of view. There's only a GET request in terms of JSON, but there's no GET request in terms of the view. So all the views are happening live instantaneously. And that's why they call it an SPA, single page application, because it's just a single page and it just magically changes and there's no refresh. There's no reload. Okay. So let's create some roots so that these links can happen, because right now these links are not functional. So let's make that happen. So to do that, let us go, let me break this, Control-C out of the Angular one. And so in app.module.ts, find that file. So Control-P, app.module.ts, there it is. We're going to import a couple of new things. First thing, so I'm going to, underneath the HTTP client module, I'm going to import this. So import router module from. And by the way, if you're wondering if there's an order of importance in these imports, I don't think there is. But the reason I try to group this half with this half is I try to group all the at Angular stuff together, and I try to group all the other stuff, the local stuff, together on their own. That's just my preference, and that's what I've seen other people do. So, and we're going to grab it from @Angular/router. Now, again, keep in mind that whatever you import here, you also have to declare down below somewhere. So that place goes right here in the imports. So for this line for imports, you're going to type the following. You're going to say, you're going to use what you just imported, router.module dot, and there's a method called forRoot. Inside that, we're going to type in roots, which we have yet to define. So here's the big idea. So we are basically telling Angular, hey, from now on, whenever you see the user clicks on a link like games or admin, I'm going to tell you where to go now. It's not going to do some HTTP GET request to a server. It's just going to stay within the client. It's going to stay in-house, inside the browser. So this routes, we're going to define it right now. We're going to say const routes equals an array. And inside that array, we're going to have a bunch of different configurations. So the first one is going to be path to an empty string. The empty string represents home. And so we're going to also say the component to fetch when that happens, home component, which we have yet to define as well. And so what we're going to do is we're going to continue making all of these different components based on our web page. So the next one we'll do is path, let's call it games. So you know what, I'll just do it as component register component. Have yet to define. And basically we're just going to copy this several more times and just change the different things. So there's a register page, there's a login page. So we're going to change that to login component. What else is there? There's an admin page. And play page where you're playing the actual game. There's a games page where you're seeing all the games. Game component. There's a edit page where you're editing a game. And finally, there's an add. So again, the big idea here is whenever the user clicks on one of the navbar links, it's not actually going to get a web page from a server. It's just going to stay in-house in the browser, and Angular will take care of that and sort of hijack that and say, oh, no, you're going to actually go to this component instead, the HTML part of that component. Question, yeah. Delete. Yeah, you know what? There's a couple here I forgot. So actually for delete, I don't know. I'll tell you next week when I get to that. Okay, so now as you can see, everything here is highlighted in red because we have to create all of those. So I want you to create it all by saying ng generate component, and then you're going to create several of them one at a time. So the first one I'm going to do is home. Right? So as soon as that's done, you'll see that there, a new line just appeared, and that's why it's no longer highlighted in red, as well as it included the home component here where it's supposed to. So I'm going to do that for the rest of them. So do the same thing for your computer. You're going to say ng-gc register, and then you're going to say ng-gc login, and et cetera, et cetera. So we're just going to do all of that. ng-gc register, ng-gc login, oops. ng-gc admin. Oh. See play. As you can see, the more I'm adding, the more this file just gets larger and larger. Just adding all these components, and we're going to eventually use them. All right, so all my red lines are gone. I've got all the components. One last thing to do, so let's save that, is open up your app.component.html file here. And underneath your nav bar, we are going to put a place where all of these different pages are going to insert themselves into. So again, all of these components, they all have their own corresponding HTML. And what I'm about to type is a special tag, which tells Angular, here is where that HTML is going to insert itself. So the special tag is this, called router outlet. So this is, I want to think of it, it's sort of like an iframe where whatever HTML is found in these components, it's going to insert itself in there, right? I'm going to just surround this with a div of container so that it's nice for CSS sake. There it is. So that's all I did was in the app.component.html, I said router outlet, and I just encapsulated it with a container div. Let us see if it works. So I anticipate if I clicked on the games page, it will go and display this, whatever's in this HTML component. Games works. If I click on the admin link, I anticipate whatever's in this admin works. So let's see if that works. Games. Crap. Admin. Oh, hold on. It's not working. Yes. ng serve. Is my YouTube still going on? Yes. Okay. All right, I think it is done. Let's try it again. Go back to localhost 4200. Ah, look at that. So by default, home works. If I click on games works. If I click on admin works. If I click on register, click on login. Great. So now we can insert whatever HTML we like, and that will work. Okay. So let's focus on this games page. We already know how to get the JSON. Let's use that JSON and spit out some nice HTML markup. I've done the hard work for you. And if you go into Blackboard, week 11, scroll down one, you will see the games component.html stuff. So let's copy that and replace what we have already. So games.component.html. We originally have games works. Let's delete that. Paste whatever you copied from Blackboard. So now we should have some markup. Now, I don't think the markup is going to show right away because we have to hook it up with the data, but it's there, ready to go. Okay, so to make it happen, let's go to our games.component.ts file. So again, this is the HTML associated with this games component. We want the JavaScript to take care of this game component, which is coming from games.component.ts. So here is where we're going to fetch our JSON data, just like you did for the previous exercise before the break. We're doing the same thing here. So the first line is an import. So import, and just like last time, we're going to import this web service, which you can kind of think of as Angular's fetch or get and post. Oh, that was HTTP rather. From web.service. Now we're going to use this web service, right? Because as a reminder, we already have the web service created back here, which already has the get of the games. So we just want to use that. And that's why we're importing it here. So let's use it. So inside our constructor, private web service, which is a type service, then ng will be exactly what we had before. We're going to have use an async await because it was a to promise in the other file. So we'll say this dot response. Oh, we don't have a response, so let's create a response. So response will have type of any. We'll also have a games of array of different objects. So again, this once this component loads, or once this web page, if you like, loads, it's going to automatically run this function called ngOnInit, which we're going to code to get the JSON data. So we're going to say await.this.webservice.get games. Now, we don't have a get games, we have a get messages. We're going to change that in a second. So the second line after that is this.games equals this. Okay, so the big idea is this. Get games will give us the JSON data, put it into this variable, and then, oh, you know what? I could have just said this.games. Here. Kind of redundant. So let's change this get games in our web service. So if we scroll down to web.service.ts, we have our original method of get messages, which will now change to get games. And we're going to get rid of everything that was related to messages, our messages component before. So you may remember here we have a component called messages. We're just going to delete that. We don't need that anymore. And because of that, you'll see it error out because messages is still being referred to in our app.module.ts file. So we have to get rid of those. So let's go into our app.module.ts file and look for anything that says messages and delete it. So here's a messages component, delete that, Control-Shift-A. And I think there's one down below here. There it is, delete that. And the declarations. Should be okay. So let's see if this works. Let's see if this works. Ah, it works. Okay, so I clicked on games and I got it. No? Okay, don't worry about if you didn't get that because this is where I planned another exercise. Okay, so I just finished this one. There you go. So just like in week 4, I think it was, I showed you how to do this page in EJS, and then I asked you in class, okay, now it's your turn to try to create the table for the admin link. Same thing. So using the exact same techniques, right? You already have the infrastructure there. I want you to create the table for the admin for the admin link, right? And you can get. I've put a link here for Bulma, where you can grab the table markup right here. So show code. There's the markup. Copy paste. Change it to whatever you want, and make it look like this. Okay. So by the end of today, you have basically completed up to week 5 of what we did in EJS in terms of just displaying, right? That was the midterm exam, it's just displaying data. So after today, you now know how to display data using the Angular way. And next week, we'll get into the other stuff. Okay, so that's your exercise. What do I have after this? Oh. Maybe, okay. Before we do the exercise, let me just do this one slide, which I just remembered before we call it a day. So basically, I'm just going to show you this one thing. Then you can do the exercise until the end of class, and that's basically the end of class. Okay. So one thing, I kind of lied here. So currently, if you were to inspect the markup for these links, still goes to, let's see here, where's the navbar? Navbar HTML. Let's just close everything else. So these links here, so to games, to admin, the href is still it's still trying to do a GET request, okay? Remember how I said the Angular way is just to keep everything in-house? So the way to do that is to do it like this slide. Go back to the slide. So change all your hrefs for your anchor tags in the format of this. Router link inside square brackets equals that. Okay, and you're putting whatever path there. So let's try that. So for href, it's now going to be called router link equals another square brackets and then a single quote and then close it up. By doing this, this keeps everything in-house. So there is no communication happening between a server and your client. So I'm going to replace all of these hrefs. Paste. Paste. Again, I have to change everything in here with square brackets, single quote, and it with a single quote, square bracket. Kind of annoying. I'll do the same thing for the login and the register link down below. I could use the multiple cursor feature. So multiple cursor, you can press the Alt key. Router link. So I'm doing 2 lines at the same time here. Oops. Yeah, for all the navbar links, yeah. I think I did it. Hopefully I did it right. Now, if I did it right, let's see if it still shows. If I click on these, you might or you should notice it's just faster, right? Because everything's in-house. It's just immediate. There's no like refresh, reload, nothing. It's just pure client side. And that will set us up for next week. Okay. And so finally, the exercise I want to leave you with is this. So again, we now got the JSON data. We displayed a grid of those games in this format, but I want you to create the same use the same data to create a table of these very same games so that for the admin page. So you can work on that for the next, basically till the end of class. I will be around. Try to get it to look exactly like this. Try to use the icons. Try to include the fill data in the add game as well. And that is it. I'll be around if you need me. Question, yeah. Okay, yeah, you just want help. Okay, got it. I will be there. Any questions about the presentations? Okay. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah, I was expecting. Do you ever watch like on YouTube like either TED Talks or JS conference talks, like 20 minutes worth of something new? You could do it with PowerPoint slides / a live demo of coding as well. That would be nice. I think somewhere in the rubric there's something about demo of code. I think that would be nice. Gives you a chance to stand in my shoes and I can laugh from where I am. So, yeah. No, it's good practice. I was also thinking for the presentations, just to make sure that everyone has a chance to present on time, is I will start on time at 11 o'clock, depending on the previous class. And the way it's going to work is after the first group is over, immediately the second group presents. So the whole class is just present, 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 present. Question, how am I going to take care of breaks? Answer, you just go when you want to go. Come back when you want to come back. But at least that way, everyone has a chance to present. Is that cool? Yeah? Okay. So that is the end of class. Again, try the exercise for fun, for learning, and I will stop the YouTube now.